welcome to a new season and to episode 45 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So it's a new season.
It is a new season. Again, I think of Gallivant.
I know.
It's a new season and we're ready to go.
Yeah. New season and
yeah. So yeah, new year, new season. We're ready to go. Hopefully we'll find some really cool new reads and some new romances and adventures and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So today we are starting a new book.
Mm-hmm.
It's New Book Day. We are doing A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. So I got into this book because we always start off new book, the new book episode with how we got into this author or how we got into this book. And it's kind of funny how I got into this book because like always, a lot of the books that we read because the other one suggests it. So I remember you telling me about this really cool Hades Persephone retelling. You told me about this really cool Hades Persephone retelling, and I couldn't remember the name of it. By the time that was like ages ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember, I think I read this for the first time last summer. So I had time on my hands.
Yeah. And didn't you read it with Kindle Unlimited?
I think I did actually. Anyway, so I sort of saw it, I think, like advertised on my Kindle Unlimited sort of feed. And then I read the synopsis and I was like, oh, this was the book Catherine was telling me about. So then I opened it up and I read it, and I ended up, there's 3 in the series right now, and I've read all of them back to back. So I really have no idea. I'm at that point where you don't know where one ends and the next one begins. But then afterwards, I remember I was like, oh, by the way, I read that Hades Persephone retelling. And you were like, no, that's not the one that I mean.
No, I was like, I read Neon Gods.
Yeah. And do you know, I'm actually pretty sure that my aunt also recommended me and said, hey, I found this really cool book that I think you would like. And it's about Hades and Persephone. So I just assumed it was Touch of Darkness, but she was also talking about Neon Gods.
Which is also a very good book.
Which is also a really good book. And actually, I think maybe even a bit less, I'm going to say problematic. There are quite a few. I don't think we're going to get into them this episode, but I think this book has a very divisive audience. Like, people love it or people hate it. And we might have red flag alerts flying. Yeah.
We love the red flags in this show.
We do love red flags in this show. Like, not actually love them like we want them around, but like,
yes.
You know. So
we love finding them and then being like, oh shit, I never noticed these before.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got into it. How did you get into it?
Yeah, so I got into this book-ish. I actually read a different book by Scarlett St. Clair, King of Battle and Blood, in December of 2021. It had just came out, and I was doing kind of a bit of a book club through a podcast that I listened to. And that was the book that they were reading. Unfortunately, getting it delivered to where we are from took a very long time. So I actually didn't get it finished for the book club anyway, but I did enjoy the book. And then I had read Neon Gods, and I saw that this was another Hades Persephone's retelling.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there was a lot of hype on Instagram, and I'm assuming TikTok, but it's all really just Instagram.
Yeah, we're not on TikTok, so
No.
but I think you're right.
Yeah. So I ended up buying it, and then it just sat on my shelf for ages. And then Kristen told me that she read it, thinking that she was talking about Neon Gods, but then we figured out it was this book. So I actually started reading it. So yeah, so after we figured out that we were talking about two different books, I went to my bookshelf and was like, I do have that book though. So I started reading it. And it's funny because I stopped just short, like, of finishing chapter 5. I didn't finish chapter 5 in my first foray into this book.
Right.
And at this point, this week is chapters 1 to 5. I
Yeah.
did finish chapter 5, but that is it. I've gone no further yet. I will obviously read it all this month, but yeah, I'll get into the reason why I stopped last time and like all that today, I guess.
Yeah. I find it really funny that there's all this hype now about the Hades Persephone thing. Like, I've always been a mythology sort of
Mm-hmm.
um
Fan.
yeah, fan. Like, I just like all of it. Actually, one of the gifts that Sid has given me through the years was this awesome, like, really thick, heavy duty book, and it was like a compilation of all mythologies in a book. Like, it had Greek, it had Roman, it had Norse, it had Celtic, like, it had so many different ones. It had like a
Mm-hmm.
few Asian ones, and like it was really cool, like compendium of
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of stories, like Greek, Roman, all those different kinds of stories. So like I'm a huge fan of the mythology sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just really funny that now all of a sudden we have two of the same story coming out, and what a different the similarities and differences between the two books,
Yeah.
which we are like, because both of us have read both, even though I don't really remember a lot. I don't remember the details of either at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I remember some things, and it's just nice to be able to like have two to compare.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
it's also really funny that two have come out around the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, and like Neon Gods is a series where Katie Robert is the author, but
Hmm.
she's doing other retellings as well. It's not just Hades and Persephone. She's
Yeah,
also doing like some of the other mythology as well in her other books in the series are about different couples. So
yeah,
it is a bit different than this one, but it is funny that two authors, because like you have to imagine they came out around the same time. So they didn't know that the other one was doing it.
no,
Like, it'd be kind of shitty putting out a book and then being like, this person also did the same thing.
yeah,
But
and
they are different. Yeah.
they're very different. But then on top of that, like, imagine, like, this has sort of skyrocketed both of them
Mm-hmm.
into, like, not that they weren't known before, but I would say that for both of them, this is sort of the book that they're known for.
Yeah.
So people are loving Greek mythology lately, I guess.
Yeah, which is funny because I was really interested in mythology too. Like I took a course when I was in university on Greek mythology just out of interest. Um,
Jealous.
it was so good, but I also don't remember a lot of it. So like I'm not very good at picking out the stuff that is like obviously a retelling, or like some of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
names that I'm reading, I'm like, I feel like this means something, but I also don't want to look it up because I don't want a spoiler.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and like, fair point too. I'm also not going to be able to pick out all of the allusions and all
Hmm.
of the like the callbacks. Maybe a few of them, but definitely not all of them.
Yeah.
Um so if anybody finds one, if anyone has one that we overlook, like, let us know. I'm
Hmm.
dying to know. So, yeah.
Yeah. So just a heads up, we're not a spoiler free zone and things might get a little saucy. So yeah, with a new book, we'll generally talk a bit about the author. Scarlett St. Clair is an international and USA Today best-selling author of paranormal, romance, and fantasy books. She has 3 ongoing series: When the Stars Come Out, King of Battle and Blood, and the one we're starting today, the Hades and Persephone saga.
Yeah, so this series is sort of split into two because we've got the Touch of series, which is sort of from Persephone's point of view. So we've got 3 books so far: A Touch of Darkness, A Touch of Ruin, and A Touch of Malice. And the 4th book, A Touch of Chaos, is going to be released sometime in 2023, but there's no definitive date as of yet that I could find. There are also 2 books in their own series, but it's the same books, but it's Hades' point of view. And those are A Game of Fate and A Game of Retribution so far. So they're the same story, which is why we're putting them sort of in the same series, but they're two series in one.
Mm-hmm.
But the 3rd book in that series is not going to be released until 2024. So this week we are reading chapters 1 through 5. So we get right into it. Persephone is our heroine. She is sitting at a coffee shop having a latte, like living her peak life. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. The first thing she notices are some narcissus flowers on the table. And like, I know that narcissus are actual flowers. I also know that Narcissus is a Greek tale, right? Like, Narcissus is the guy who loved his reflection so much he stared into a lake
Mm-hmm.
until he died or something.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they named the flower, but I wonder if Narcissus is like an actual person in this world.
Yeah. I don't
Like,
know.
I don't remember him coming up as an individual, but like, he must be somewhat real if they have the flowers. I don't know.
Yeah. But then it's interesting that this is a flower that's related to Hades. Is it like, is he narcissistic?
I mean, in the books, kind of, but I don't know in real life. I haven't met him. Anyway, so yeah. So she says that the narcissus flower is a symbol of Hades, and the only reason somebody would display the flower is if they're in mourning. So because these are all on the coffee shop tables, she wonders if the owner of the coffee house is mourning. And do you know what? I kind of like that idea. Like, we don't, as far as I know, maybe we do, we don't really have a tradition to show people that we're in mourning. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it used to be you would wear black, you would wear a veil, like back
Mm-hmm.
in the 18th, 19th century. Like, remember Queen Victoria famously wore, didn't she like mourn her husband the rest of her life and like always only wear like dark clothing and a veil
Yeah.
because she mourned her husband or something like that? Don't quote me on it. I'm not 100% sure. But like, we don't really have anything like that anymore, I feel like.
Yeah. I agree
And
with
I
that.
sort of wish we did. I feel like it would make life so much easier.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't have to tell everybody every single time you meet someone, oh, what's wrong with you? Oh,
Yeah.
my nan died or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe
So,
people would be a bit nicer.
yeah. Then she wonders, anyway. So then she wonders how Hades feels about only being worshipped when people are mourning. Um, And I mean, I agree. Like, that must suck. Like, oh, people are only think about him when they have a loved one who dies. It's kind of morbid, but you know. She also thinks about how he's the richest of all the gods and has the title of Rich One. And he's invested in a bunch of clubs and gambling dens in quote unquote New Greece. So we will learn a little bit more about how New Greece exists in a little bit. Essentially, we're just getting her rambling thoughts in order to get some backstory
Mm-hmm.
this first little bit. She also thinks that Hades has a reputation that he likes a good bet, a good wager.
Mm-hmm.
And he usually doesn't gamble in anything except for the human soul. So if he's going to gamble, it's going to be in the human soul. I mean, he's the god of the dead. Why not?
Yeah. It seems like that would be exactly what he wants.
And
So,
if he's rich, I mean, he doesn't need your money. So, anyway, so her mother is Demeter. So Demeter is the goddess of harvest. So she apparently dislikes Hades a lot. And Demeter is like one of the 12, like one of the big 12, we'll say, right?
mm-hmm.
And Persephone's again thinking like she's never been to one of his clubs, but she wonders why he gathers so much wealth and then doesn't bother helping anyone with it. I mean, we could say that about a lot of people in
Yeah.
our society.
Maybe it's different there, but it seems kind of naive of her to think
Yeah.
that, in my
I
opinion.
find I find her generally a naive character, and I find she is a shoot first, ask questions later sort of a person.
Yeah.
So this is just sort of proving the point a little bit.
Yeah.
She mentions that she's working on her research paper for a university, and she graduates in 6 months. I have huge issues with how they formulated their schooling in this book, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. But I will just say that it's like the whole university, the way it seems like, and no dissing, like I'm not trying to throw shade, but it seems like the author just randomly put what would fit for the story and didn't do any research on how actual school works.
Yeah, I get
Uh,
that.
so she's graduating in 6 months. She's also starting an internship at New Athens News in the morning. So I guess it's a newspaper. And she hopes to be hired when she graduates. So, like, one, I've never heard of a 6-month internship.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, two, have you ever heard of a journalism internship in the first place? Like, maybe they exist.
I'm sure, like, if you had time off, you'd be able to, like, there's any kind of internship. I actually heard over Christmas of somebody who's in school for physiotherapy, and they just contacted a physiotherapist in town and were like, "Can I work here? I'm in school for it." And they were like, "Sure, you can work when you're like in the evenings, basically." So like, I'm sure you can get one. I don't think I have issues with her internship as well. I don't think it would be this. I think it would be working the front desk and getting coffee.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, we're going to touch more on that, though, because there's way more issues with it when she gets started.
Yes. Oh my
Um,
God.
so she says that the newspaper is located in the Acropolis, which is like, haha, like call back to the actual Acropolis in Greece. But in this case, it's like this huge, like 60-story building. It's not a ruin. So that's nice. Um, all of a sudden, she gets a text from her best friend, Lexa Sideris. So they apparently met in class, and they've been friends for 4 years. And Lexa wants to go for drinks to celebrate Persephone's internship. And like, this is another thing that bothers me. Like, they want to go for drinks to celebrate it the night before.
Yeah.
Even though she did say she's been like blowing her off for 2 weeks because she's been wanting to go celebrate for 2 weeks. But like, I feel like I don't know. This is the last night that I would go. The night before you have to wake up and go to work.
Yeah. And make a good impression because you want a job there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think I wouldn't call it an internship.
Maybe that's what's throwing me, because in my mind, an internship is something sponsored by your school and that
Mm-hmm.
they help find and place you in as sort of a learning. Like, I did an internship when I went to school for teaching, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to do a 4-month internship at a school where I taught alongside a mentor teacher. I took over their classes gradually and they sort of mentored me and whatever. And then I went back to school.
Yeah.
But I also didn't get paid for it or anything like that. It was, and that's another thing. Like,
That's unpaid internship. Yeah. That's a
yes,
whole thing.
sometimes you can get paid once. But to me, this seems like, yeah, she just went out and got a job and was like, hey, I'm almost done school. Like, can I
Yeah.
get a job here? Like,
Yeah.
I just think internship is the wrong word.
Yeah, I agree. And like I know in other programs in university you can get like work terms. Like
Yeah.
they are also, you're usually out of school doing a work term, or like I know sometimes people might do like an online course while they're doing a work term or something, but like it's never you're in school for 6 months and working. Like it's not, that's not normal for any program in our world.
No. So, yeah, anyway. Um, so, oh, Persephone also, she's like, again, running thought process. So as she's texting Lexa about wanting to go out to celebrate, she thinks about how it's weird that Hades claims the narcissus flower as his because it's the flower of like spring and rebirth. It's like and I mean, like, I get it
Mm-hmm.
because, he's not the god of the dead, I guess. He's the god of the underworld. And, like, I don't know. I can see him wanting a nice flower, but I guess she does not.
Yeah. I also think like rebirth is kind of his, I know it's not. Like I said, I haven't read past chapter 5. He's
Yeah.
the god of the underworld. I'm assuming it's not just like, I obviously haven't been there yet in this book, but I'm assuming it's not just like a bunch of decaying corpses down there.
No.
Like, so I can see him wanting a flower that represents rebirth if it's something else down there.
Um, anyway, she also talks about how her schedule is super busy. But that's how she likes it. So she's in school, she has this internship, um, and she likes being busy because that way she can avoid visiting her mother. So already we know that they maybe don't have a great relationship if she wants to avoid seeing her. So we get a little tidbit on how this world was created. So it's called the Great Descent. So that's what they call the event in which the gods came to Earth. And apparently there was like a great war between gods and humans. And after the war, um, they created this new world called New Greece. Um, Lexa all of a sudden shows up at the cafe. I guess texting wasn't really a good enough form of communication, so she just comes over and gives them the good news. She got them on the list for Nevernight, which is like a really, I'm not going to call it prestigious, but like it's like a really famous club that Hades owns. Like everybody wants to get in the club and get on the list. Um so apparently all of the businesses that the gods do are really popular. So like it's not like in this world the gods are like celebrities. So
Mm-hmm.
like Dionysus, he makes wines and they sell out like super fast. And Aphrodite has like a fashion line and everybody wants to wear her clothes and like girls like kill for her fashions. So the wait list for Nevernight is Hades Club, so everybody wants to go in there. And apparently the wait list is at least 3 months. So it doesn't actually sound that bad. 3 months.
No, I'm wondering if like the population is very small or something. Like it's not that long for a wait list.
No. Um, but Persephone sort of promised her mother that when she moved to town to go to school, she would stay away from all the gods. So, going to Hades Club is sort of the opposite of staying away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, She also mentions that she actually switched majors. So initially when she went to school, she started off as a botany major, which again, like, is there such thing as a botany major?
I guess this is a different world.
Like, I feel like biology is a thing, and then you could major, like, you could specialize in botany.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she switched majors from botany to journalism after only one semester, which pissed her mother off. Um, and obviously, like, I can see, not that I can see why her mother would be pissed off, but I can see why her mother wanted her to major in botany because she's the goddess of harvest. Obviously, plants are a big deal for the mother,
Hmm.
for Demeter. So I can see her wanting um, Persephone to sort of follow in her footsteps. But because she switched majors and because that pissed Demeter off, now her mother has one of her nymphs follow her everywhere, which is sort of like, ee. Um, no one also, so like the gods and goddesses are like worshipped and they, um, like I said, they're sort of like celebrities, but nobody knows who Persephone is. So she'd never been introduced at Olympus. Humans didn't know who she was or what she looked like. I feel like everybody knows that Demeter had a daughter, but nobody knows what her name is or what she looks like or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, so she is in uh New Greece. She's in town pretending to be a human. So like nobody knows she's actually a goddess. And she said that if people knew, she wouldn't have any freedom anymore. Like she would be hounded by
Yeah.
everybody. So again, it's just like a celebrity. So she said also that she wears a glamour to hide her sort of godliness. Um, and the gods all have this, they all have a distinguishing feature that identifies them as gods. They all have horns, but all their horns are different looking.
Hmm.
And I also think they have like sort of like, I'm going back to like Akatar and stuff, like they all have this like otherness about them, and I feel like it's the same thing. So like their eyes get a little bit more vivid and like they just have this like maybe a little bit of a glow about them when they
Hmm.
don't have their glamour on. um so she wears a glamour constantly, but her mother has to provide the magic for it. um and her horns, she mentions, they're like white and they spiral. I don't know if they spiral like goat horns, or when I picture her saying white, it says they spiral straight up like a kudu. I've never seen a kudu,
No.
but like spiraling up, I think of just a slight twist, not like a full on like roly poly.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
All the gods wear glamours to hide their horns and stuff, but again, usually I feel like they don't, they might hide their horns sometimes, but they don't always hide their like otherness. Um, so she tells Lexa, because Lexa's like, "Oh, I got us into Nevernight," and she's like, "No, thank you. I don't want to go because I don't want to meet Hades." But she's thinking to herself, "I actually kind of, he's such a mystery. He's so intriguing." And like I feel like that's our first sort of hint right there. Like, oh, he intrigues her, so obviously they're going to meet.
Yeah.
Lexa sort of thinks that it's just because her mother is overprotective. So again, she doesn't know that Persephone is human. She doesn't know that Demeter is Demeter. Um, and she just thinks that her mother is overprotective. She lets slip that she let Demeter into their apartment last week and into Persephone's room when Persephone wasn't home. Um, so like Persephone's like, "Oh, for the love of God," like she's a hovering helicopter parent.
Yeah.
um I think we can also safely say that like Persephone's around like 22, 23 at this point.
Yeah.
um and she said that she had grown up for 18 years in her mother's greenhouse and had never ever left. So she moved to New Greece and I guess New Athens for a life. I find that they over villainize Demeter in this. Like, normally what you want to see with villains is like a reason why almost. And I feel like in this book, she sort of makes Demeter this like villain with no reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'll see a bit later on that I don't know. She just like, I don't know why she does what she does. And like, you want to say, oh, it's because she loves her daughter. From what I've seen, I honestly don't know if that's true.
Yeah. Like,
Uh,
I haven't read as much, but it just feels very possessive as opposed to, like, it reminds me of the Disney movie Tangled, Mother Gothel.
yes. But like, again, even so, I feel like Mother Gothel has a purpose. Like, she wants to stay young
Yes.
forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Demeter literally has everything. I don't understand the point of why she's being as possessive as she's being.
Yeah. I feel like she must have like a tragic backstory of like who's Persephone's father. I don't know if we ever get that or anything, but like maybe there's a tragic backstory there and she's just trying to protect her daughter from making the same mistakes, but then she's being like,
But again, like, I don't even know if she loves her daughter.
yeah,
Like, I don't see the point in distracting, in trying to protect her when she just doesn't even seem like it. Like, I don't know. We'll get into it.
yeah.
But so she sort of, Persephone is thinking to herself about how possessive her mother is and how she crosses so many lines. So she's like, screw it. I'm going to be rebellious. Let's go to Nevernight. Um, I guess the waitress that brought her coffee originally comes back to like take her mug from her after Lexa leaves. And she knows that it's one of her mother's nymphs. I guess she can see behind the human glamour that she's put up, and essentially threatens her with death if she tells Demeter about their plans. And she's initially like, "Oh, if Demeter finds out that I lied, she's gonna kill me." And Persephone's like, "Well, who are you most afraid of right now?" And if it were me, I'd be like, Demeter.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, of course, it'd be Demeter.
Yeah,
Like, Persephone's not scary at all.
no.
But apparently it works on this little nymph.
Well, I guess. Does it?
Anyway. It does, apparently.
Yeah.
I think. So, um, she touches, before she leaves, she touches the narcissus petals on the flower, and the petals curl in and crumble and die. So
Ooh.
Demeter is like the goddess of harvest and can like make things grow and like this goddess of plant life. And she was like, so she could make that flower like multiply enormously, but she touches stuff and it dies. Like, she can't grow shit.
Yeah.
So essentially, Persephone, we're learning, doesn't really have magic, which is concerning for a god.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they're immortal.
I don't know. I would assume so.
I guess it's just she's talked about like how she's a fully grown adult at 22.
Yeah. I guess they just might have similar lives to humans. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't read enough. But like,
Yeah.
if we want to compare it to like Neon Gods, like that story, I kind of liked that the god name was a title, but it also wasn't actual gods. Like they didn't really have powers and stuff. They were just influential people in the
Yeah. Community.
yeah. Um, and it like moved through family.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so she leaves the cafe. I assume she goes home and gets ready because they skip over all that. And the next scene they're at the club, waiting in line. And the club itself is this big black obsidian pyramid that's apparently so big it eclipses all other buildings. Like, it's the biggest thing in town. And there are no windows. Like, engineering wise, I don't get it. I
Yeah,
feel like it must break so many codes. It has
I
no
guess
windows.
Yeah, there are no codes here.
There are no fire exits.
No. Yeah.
So they're in line waiting to get in. Persephone already thinks this is a mistake. She's terrified her mom is gonna like pop up and find her. And like she keeps saying how like, oh, I hope Hades isn't here, and everyone's like, you really think Hades is gonna be here? Like, it's his club. He's never here. Like, you are deluded. Anyway, so they're also talking about how hot Hades probably is, but like he also like nobody is allowed to take his picture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even at events, there's not allowed to have any cameras, no like no video, nothing. So like no one really knows what he looks like unless you meet him, like, and are introduced to him.
Mm-hmm.
Persephone and like Lexa sort of like, can you stop pretending that you don't want to meet Hades? Like, we can all tell, like, we, and by all I mean just the two of them.
Oh, yeah.
She can tell that she actually does want to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden they like look up front and see a dude take a swing at the doorman, who is an ogre, and he's crying that he just needs her back, and everybody can sort of tell that he's immortal and somebody died and he's trying to get in to see Hades. But Persephone's like, Hades don't let souls in and out. Like, no. Once you're in, you're in. So they go in. They were on the list. They're let in, and they have to surrender their phones because, again, Hades says no pictures.
So this was a thing as well that I didn't enjoy because I just assumed that they didn't take their phones and they had their bags checked when I read it. But either way, if they surrender their phones, that's fine too. But like later on, she's like, I'll just text her. It'll be fine. Well, she doesn't have a fucking phone. If she's in the club, you're not going to get a hold of her.
Like, does she say? I didn't catch that.
Yeah. When she's leaving, she leaves without telling her friend. And then she's like, I'll just text her. Like, your friend doesn't have a fucking phone.
But I assume she takes her phone when she leaves.
Yeah, like, but her friend doesn't have a phone, so Lex is probably like running around afraid that she's dead. But I also just didn't think that they brought their phones. I thought they just checked their bags and like,
oh no,
made sure they had none.
Oh yeah, no. It says they do have to have their like purses looked through to make sure there's no contraband, but also then they have to surrender their phones. And I wonder if they just have like little cubbies with numbers on them for each of their little phones. So they go to the bar and they order drinks, and some guy like comes up behind them and pays for them. He's super hot, and like, I don't know if maybe this is just not the club scene here, but I like, not that I've never had a guy offer me drinks, but just I find the way that this is approached, I find it very odd.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy comes up to them. He's super hot. His name is Adonis. Shocker. So we already know that he's going to be a D-bag because it's Adonis. And he invites them. So he buys their drink and offers, he's like, oh, come sit with us. Come sit with me and my friends. And so they do. And then all of a sudden, these people become their like besties.
Yeah.
And I just find this really bizarre. Like, this has never happened to me in a club situation.
No. I also don't think I'd go to a random stranger's table.
No! Like, I would chat up a guy, like, in saying that, Sid and I have been together since I was, like, almost 20. So it's not like I had a ton of experience chatting up guys at a bar, but, like, I would chat up a guy at a bar, but I wouldn't, I don't know. I would not go sit with him somewhere, like, with all of his buddies and not sit with him. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Adonis. It's so weird.
Adonis is like, come sit with me and my friends. And if I wanted to, like, take him home or, like, make out with him or dance with him or something like that, I would go sit with him. Mm-hmm. But they don't even go sit with him. They end up on the, like, opposite side of the table chatting to some of his other people. There's like 11 or 12 people. How, like, I don't know. I just feel like that would be so intimidating.
But it's also like if a guy is hitting on you, he doesn't usually offer to like he doesn't usually come up and not say which one of you he's hitting on. So like is he hitting on both of them and just seeing which one wins? Like I just don't there's so much to it that I'm like weirded by.
Yeah, it's a very clumsy, I think. Like, I understand needing.
Them to become friends.
Yes.
But like if they accidentally bumped into each other and then they were like, "Oh crap, you spilled my drink. Let me
Yeah.
buy you another one. I'll just come over to my table and we'll get a waiter just get it or something." I
Yeah.
don't know. Anything.
So yeah, so she goes to sit. The both girls go sit at the table. It's like in the VIP section, and there's like 11 or 12 people there, and they go sit with these few people. So there's Arrow and Xerxes, and they're twins, and I think they're boys.
Not sure.
And then also Sybil, and Sybil becomes one of our like besties later on. And she is an oracle, and she goes to the College of the Divine, and she will serve a god as a oracle when she graduates. Um, Sybil sort of. I just also find this a really odd conversation to have, um, at a club.
Yes.
Because Sybil then talks about how her parents, like, they're all like, oh my god, you get to serve a god, you're an oracle. They're amazed. And then she's like, oh, thanks. My parents weren't really happy about it. So her parents are called the Impious. So when the gods came to Earth in the Great Descent, they rejected them. They didn't want them there. Um, so they're called Impious because they don't. I don't know if it's that they don't worship the gods, but I think it generally is that they don't like the gods being a part of their society.
Yeah.
And apparently the impies don't like the way the gods use mortals as puppets. Not wrong.
Yeah. Can't be mad at them for that.
No, and I will say, like, obviously we see that a lot in Greek mythology. We also see it a lot in this book, actually. A lot of the, especially the Big 12, like they treat humans like crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I don't blame them. Um but yeah, so that's sort of the reason why the war happened. So the gods came down to Earth. It was called the Great Descent. Enough humans were pissed at them being down there that it caused a war. Um, when it was done, though, obviously the gods had won. And then they sort of spliced the world together to create this thing called New Greece. Anyway, so they're sitting at this table, and all of a sudden she makes eye contact with a lone guy on a balcony, who she says is, she was like, oh, she thought Adonis was handsome. Like, no, this guy, like, eclipsed him insanely. Um, so she says he's the most handsome man she has ever seen.
Wonder who that could be.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, I don't think it's any shock. We don't know who it is yet. So she starts to fidget because, like, he's so hot. She starts to get all hot and bothered. And so she crosses her legs. So she's still staring at him and he's staring at her. And because she crosses her legs, that motion, that movement causes his eyes to glance downward. He casts his gaze down, is what the book said. So essentially, he stares at her vagina.
Yeah.
And it makes her feel empty and desperately wants to be filled. No. She desperately wants to be filled up.
I hate it so much.
Because a guy looked at her vagina.
I hate it.
I find it so funny. Like, it's not bad when you're reading it. Like, you sort of are like, oh yeah, I can see that. But like,
No,
dissecting,
it was bad when I was reading it too. Especially since, like, I think we already get at this point that she's a virgin. Like, she already says it at some point.
Does she? I don't think so.
Because I thought she said something about her mother doesn't want her near the gods, but she's also not allowed to sleep with humans or mortals or whatever.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I think we can sort of guess that she is. Well, we're telling you now, she is a virgin.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, like I see where you're coming from that way. Like as a virgin, yeah, come on. But like,
You don't. No. God.
anyway. So all of a sudden, she sees a woman put her arms around this guy's waist, and that causes her to look away. She's like, "Oh shit, this guy's like obviously got a date." So she then asks the group and asks Adonis like, "What's upstairs?" And he says it's a VIP lounge for like the betting, like for the gambling.
Mm.
And it's sort of a more private place for Hades to do his deals. Apparently, you need a password to get in, and the deals are really high stakes. So Hades gets to pick the stakes, and they said that like Hades likes to. I guess Persephone sees it as like sort of a way to torment humans because if a human is really desperate and goes in and asks for something, Hades will say yes, but they have to do something in return that's usually like a vice of theirs. So, if a mortal wants, say, money or love or something like that, Hades can ask an alcoholic not to drink,
Mm-hmm.
or can ask a sex addict to remain chaste. Um, it's something really, really challenging for them, and if they can't do it, then Hades gets their soul. So it's like really high stakes. And that's just a little tidbit of information that we get that we like that will come up in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So after that little chat, Lexa and Persephone go to the bathroom, and Lexa has a real thing for Adonis. Like she's like, "Oh my god, he's the most handsome person ever. I want him." And like again, we can safely say Adonis is going to end up being an asshole. Like we know it because Adonis in Greek mythology is an asshole.
Yeah.
Um, this is like I'm not gonna lie, Lexa is not my favorite either, especially at the beginning here. So they sort of have a little bit of a. I'm not gonna call it a full on tiff. Like they don't have a full on argument,
Mm-hmm.
but Lexa sort of gets mad, like gets a little bit annoyed with Persephone because she's like, Persephone's like, "What? You like Adonis? Like, come on." And Lexa is sort of like, you know that you can show emotion. Like, it's okay. You can tell, like, you don't have to hide that you're, like, maybe interested in Hades. Like, you don't have to hide that from me. So she's a bit annoyed that Persephone's sort of guarding her feelings and, like, trying to not be honest.
Hmm.
And I think that's a bit dickish. Like, she's never met this person before. So, like, why would she be like, oh, yeah, I want to meet Hades so bad? Like,
Yeah.
come on. And
Yeah.
then she abandons Persephone in the bathroom.
Yeah.
She straight up leaves her and like doesn't actually tell her that she's leaving. So like
Yeah.
they have to wait for a stall to be free, and then Persephone goes in the stall, comes out, Lexa's already gone.
Yeah. I found that very weird. I was like, are you sure she's not still in the bathroom? Like, like it was just such a weird, like, I don't care if you have a bit of an argument with your friend.
You
If
can't.
you were leaving, you'd be like when she left the bathroom, you'd be like, okay, I'm going back to the table. Like,
Yeah.
I want to get with Adonis.
Yes. Which is fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, go. Okay.
Communication.
Yeah. But anyway, I just like she's not I don't find her a particularly endearing character
Mm-hmm.
as of right now. Anyway, so I guess obviously Persephone is all alone, so she goes out looking for Lexa. Lexa had this like bright red dress on, so she's looking around and she spies someone who looks familiar, but she doesn't know why they look familiar. And she goes over and asks if she's seen her friend. Like,
Can you imagine? I guess if I were in my early 20s and I was drunk at a club, I'd be like, did you see a girl in a red dress?
which is
I
what I
might.
which is what she did. She said, "Have you seen
Yeah.
my friend? Like, I'm looking for her. She's wearing a red dress."
Yeah. Maybe.
But still, like reading it now, I'm just like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the stranger slash not stranger tells her that she went upstairs. And she's like, I can give you the password to get in to the private lounge because that's where I saw her go. And I feel like, again, that's just sort of a like, oh, come on. Obviously, she didn't go upstairs. She didn't have the password.
Yeah. Also, why wouldn't you just check the table with Adonis first or the bar? Like, I would immediately go back to the table with Adonis because she
Yeah.
was just talking about how hot he is. I wouldn't ask a random person. Did
No.
she go up these stairs that she's not allowed up and
Yeah.
has no interest in going up? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
plot.
Yes. So she goes upstairs and gives the password. She goes in. And it's essentially like a private casino sort of a feel. Like it's a bunch of people like sitting down playing cards.
Hmm.
She goes over to an empty table, and I don't understand why. Like if she's looking for Lexa, glance around, no girl in a red dress, okay, and then leave. Like,
Yeah.
but no, she goes to an empty table and sits down, and there's a dealer there, and the hottie from earlier, from the hottie that checked out her vag and makes her want to get filled up, uh, ends up sitting with her, and he offers to teach her how to play. And they flirt, and she's actually quite good at flirting for somebody who's a virgin.
Yeah. And to like, I don't know, it makes
Live,
it seem like she doesn't flirt with people because she's not allowed to like boys
yeah,
and she hasn't met any gods. So, like, when has she got all this experience flirting? She was in a greenhouse for 18 years.
yeah. Anyway, so he asks her like a couple of questions, like why she's here, and she sort of says, "Oh, I'm being rebellious." And like they have a couple more questions. He wants to know like who she's rebelling from and all this stuff. And she's like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't answer that. I'm going to go." So she gets up to leave and he grabs her wrist and like wants her to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden she's like, "Okay, I'll stay." So they play a simple game of 5-card poker. But because she didn't bring any money, which I also don't understand, like, how does she expect to pay for drinks without money?
Yeah. I kind of just thought that she left her wallet at the table or
But
something,
why
like
would you leave your
downstairs.
wallet with a bunch of strangers?
I don't know. You do dumb shit when you're 22.
This is so annoying and problematic
Mm-hmm.
for me. Anyway, so instead of playing for money, they're going to play for questions. So
Mm-hmm.
if he wins, he gets to ask her any question. And if she wins, she gets to ask him any questions. He wins every hand, obviously, because she's never played poker before. So he needs to teach her.
Yeah.
So he asks her why she's rebelling and who it's against. She says, "I'm rebelling against my mother." Um, So I guess because she grew up with a god for a mother, she understands the need to be cagey. Like she's not super open and forthright. So like if he ever asks a follow-up question, she's like, "Oh no, that's another question." And like she's never, if he asks like, "Why are you rebelling?" She sort of just cagey a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
crafty. So I guess the fact that she's not um sort of letting it all out is intriguing for him. And she sort of wonders out loud. She's like, I wonder why people play Hades. Like, why even bother? And he says it's obviously because they think they can win. And she's like, I wonder if that like offends him or if that makes him mad that people think they can win against him. And then he responds with, I win either way, admitting to her
Mm.
then that he is Hades. So as soon as she makes that connection, it's like, oh shit, this is Hades. She has to run away. She's been quite nervous this whole time that her glamour, like she was worried that he would be able to see through her glamour.
Mm-hmm.
And so like she sort of doesn't she's sort of like still concerned about this. So she's like, oh shit, I gotta go. So she like runs away. As she's running away, she notices that there's a spot on her wrist from where he grabbed her, like to beg her to stay at the table. There's like a slight burn, and that's all we hear about it for, but it does come back. And even though she gets out of there and hails a cab, like she says that there's a parts of her that wants to go back in and demand a lesson in the anatomy of his body.
Oh,
My god. I can't,
no.
like, she's not taking anatomy though. Like, if she was an anatomy, like, student, I would think that this would make more sense.
Yeah.
But she's not. She's a journalism student.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just like bleh, a little bit
Yeah,
gross.
it's unnecessary, I thought.
It's a bit cringe.
Yeah.
So wakes up the next morning, and there are a series of little black dots on her wrist where there was that burn. And she's like, it's like a little tattoo that won't come off, and she like scrubs it and scrubs it, but it won't come off. And she's like, shit, what does this mean? So she's like, I'm gonna go to Hades' club later and ask him what it means. And she's like stressed out that she accidentally sold her soul. But like, can gods sell their souls?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I guess anyone can strike a bargain.
I guess
But
that's true. So she gets ready for work, and all of a sudden her mother shows up. And so I guess her mother gives her magic for her glamour. So she, like, they don't really explain how she uses it, but like her mother gives her so much magic, and then she can use it to fix her glamour.
Yeah.
So, but I guess as the days go, it wears out, or wears off, and then her mother's magic, like, I guess she only has so much of it, so her mother has to come and replenish it.
Yeah.
So her mother uses her magic to fix Persephone's glamour, but in doing so, she also makes her look more like her. So, like, Persephone's hair is a bit curly, so she straightens it to look like Demeter's hair, and she takes away the freckles that's on her face, which again, like, makes her look more like Demeter. And then she also like hides the godliness of her, so like takes her horns away and stuff like that. I guess she said Demeter isn't bothering with the glamour at this point, although I don't understand why, because what if Lexa's home?
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess that's another thing. Apparently her antlers are like deer antlers. And it makes sense. Like, I guess when I think of Demeter, I think of like a forest.
Yeah.
So it makes sense
I
to
get
me.
that.
So we also learned that Persephone herself has a title. So if Demeter is the goddess of the harvest, Persephone is the goddess of spring, which is problematic for her considering she can't grow anything.
Yes.
Just, her mother sort of doesn't understand why Persephone wants to work. Like, she's like, I don't understand why you think you need to work. Like, you don't. But Persephone wants the freedom. And, like, we're getting here that she really doesn't like her mother.
Yeah. But I feel like there's more than two options. It's not like, I guess maybe there isn't. Maybe that's the point. Like, it's either be stuck in the greenhouse with her mother or work at the New Athens news place.
Yeah.
Like, I guess those are her only real options. I don't know.
But, like, her mother must be paying for school for her and paying for
Yeah.
her apartment if she has no job.
Yeah.
Anyway. So they get into a bit of a fight. Her mother calls her nickname, which really pisses Persephone off. She calls her Kore, like Kore. I don't understand the significance of it. I'm sure it is significant. But that really pisses Persephone off. It was a nickname that she got as like that her mother called her as a child. Um,
I think she said it means maiden.
oh yeah, does mean maiden. Anyway,
Yeah.
whatever. Really makes her mad, so they get into a bit of an argument. But she knows that her mother has like far-reaching power and her retribution could be swift, so she tries to like make it up with her mother and tells her like, you are all I have. And her mother responds with like, oh, don't worry darling, but then says, remember that, like, I am all you have. So she sort of like threatens her before she leaves,
Yeah.
which is sort of like why I feel like I don't know if Demeter loves her daughter, because of like just like that comment first of all.
Mhm. Yeah.
uh anyway, so her mother leaves. Persephone removes some of the glamour and I guess puts some reserve magic in her bank. I don't know. um
I also don't understand what she actually looks like without the glamour. Like, does she have straight hair and then she uses the glamour to curl it? And then her mom's like, no, I want you to look like me. So she straightens it again. Like, I don't really know what Persephone looks like on the regular.
um I think she's got curly hair naturally.
Okay.
And I think
And
Demeter glamours it to look more like her than she probably does.
yeah, so she has freckles and curly hair normally, and she
Yeah.
just has like antlers that she then mostly just glamours the antlers so that she looks like herself.
And I think like the eyes, like I think her eyes are like there's an otherness.
Iridescent, yeah.
Yeah. Um anyway, so she removes some of the glamour so that she's got her curly hair and freckles back and walks to work because she can't teleport like the other gods because again, her magic is non-existent.
Mhm.
But like also she's wearing wedge heels and she's walking to work. Like, I don't know, maybe that's one of her godly powers, that she can walk somewhere in high heels and be okay.
Yeah.
Um she thinks back to Hades at this point. Like, she said that she wants him, which great. Like, I'm really happy for you that you've made that realization already. Um but she knows that a relationship with him is forbidden.
Yeah.
Um especially by her mother, and she says she needs her mother's magic for her glamour. Um so even though she really wants to like have a physical relationship with Hades, she knows that she can't, because if her mother
Mhm.
says no and her mother then refuses to give her magic for her glamour, then obviously she'll lose her anonymity and won't be able to like live in the city the way she wants to.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into the internship job stuff. And I'm just going to say right up front, this is the part I have huge issues with. So she goes to the office. She meets Valerie, who is like at the front desk. So I'm assuming she's a secretary or like an office manager sort of
Yeah.
role. But she says she remembers her from the interview. So I'm like, did she interview her or was she just there for the interview? Like,
Maybe she's the one that like met her and brought her to the interview room or something.
maybe. And so she's like, oh, so her and Valerie have a little chat, like as Valerie is showing her to the editor's office. And apparently, Valerie has been working for New Athens News for a year,
Hmm.
but she doesn't graduate school for another 2 years, while this is Persephone's first internship and job, and she's finished school in 6 months. Plus, Valerie mentioned she already has a job lined up in 2 years with Zeus's marketing company a few floors up after she graduates. So,
Yeah.
like, she's been working for a year. She still has 2 years of school, and she's already been like cherry picked by Zeus to go up to his office when she graduates in 2 years.
Hmm.
Like, I don't see how this makes sense in any way, shape, or form. Who is hiring all of these college students?
Yeah. And like, when is she doing classes?
I don't know. I don't know. It's really, really bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is what I mean when I say that I feel like, or maybe this was a typo. Maybe she graduates in 2 months. Because I
Oh
can't
yeah.
imagine somebody would say, hey, in 2 years, I'm going to give you a job.
Yeah.
Especially if, and I don't mean this in any way offensively, but especially somebody who's like just an office manager. Not just, I know it's a hard job, but like I've heard of it happening maybe for like med students or engineers or like even nurses sometimes, like people who are really like really, really prolific in their line of work
Mm-hmm.
and in a job, like in a position that's going to be really like desired, like people hard to fill positions that usually end up needing a whole lot of schooling. But I don't understand why an office manager slash secretary is being like cherry picked 2 years in advance.
For a different organization.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like she got this internship and because of this internship, they were like, oh my God, we need you to stay. It's somewhere else completely.
Yeah. I'm just this is what I mean when I say I feel like the author didn't really understand school, how school
Yeah.
works.
I
Like
think it's more she just wanted to like give these people access to things. Like, I don't know why they have to be in school at all.
I don't know. It's not really relevant.
No, we rarely, well, I haven't read the whole book yet, but I just feel like it's not like, if you want, it would make more sense if Persephone was like, I've worked in this career for 2 years and they're finally letting me do shit.
Do you know what this reminds me of? This totally reminds me of 50 Shades. Because I know you didn't read it, but in 50 Shades, same thing happens. Mrs. is a doing an English degree
Mhm.
and gets a job at an editing firm like right after graduation, and like same thing. It just seems like that author also did not research how school worked.
Yeah.
Like it feels very similar to me, actually.
Who's working at the Starbuckses and the McDonald's in these worlds if it's not people
The,
trying to get through college?
exactly. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Undercover nymphs are the only ones working there.
Uh, uh,
Like,
so Valerie takes her to see her boss, Demetri, who essentially tells her that her internship can be whatever she wants it to be. So she can write, she can edit, she can copy, she could go get coffee if she wants. And again, I call bullshit. There is no way an internship is whatever the student wants.
yeah,
That is not, like, he's essentially giving her free reign to do whatever the hell she wants. Not true.
yeah,
Like, this actually is probably the thing that bothers me the most in this whole book.
yeah. But it's also my big thing too is like, like, I'm sure they interviewed her and looked at some of her material before, but what if her writing is shit? Like, likely, if you're applying at a place like this, anything that you have written already has been edited and reviewed by many people, probably some teachers. Like, it's the utmost top of what you are able to do. And you're going to tell her that she can write, even though you haven't seen her write it. Like, there has to be a little bit of time where you are like, are you any good at anything?
Yeah. And, like, there must be, yeah, like, again, I agree with you. If she is shit, then they need to tell her. Well,
Yeah.
they need to figure that out. She needs to at least have a few weeks of proving herself and going to get coffee.
Yeah. But also writing and editing, like I am not in that world in any way, shape, or form. But it's two completely different skills, writing and editing. Like, you can't just say you can do whatever you want. You can say, like, oh, you gave us this paper and it was really good, so we think that you'd be able to write, or something like that. But, like, you can't just say you can do whatever you want. Like, what are they going to just put out garbage because she wrote something that's shit? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I don't get it.
Yeah, I can't. Anyway. So then there's a little bit more. Oh, we have to get some information in here because of plot. So they talk about how not only is New Athens News, not only are they like the premier source for news, they're also in the news quite a lot. There are like lawsuits of slander and invasion of privacy and all that sort of stuff. Apparently Apollo, like the god Apollo, accused the paper of being a member of the Triads. So the Triads is a group of humans that are actively working against the gods. So Zeus labeled them a terrorist organization, and anyone caught with their propaganda will be like killed essentially. So Apollo thought that the New Athens News was working with the Triads. So because Zeus labeled them a terrorist organization, the faithfuls, which are the group of humans that support the gods and believe in the gods and worship the gods, went around killing impious people, so the people that don't support the gods, regardless of whether they were triads or not. So sort of similar to like how, you know, there's this like, it's relevant to the world today, I feel like. How some people go after an entire religion based on a group of zealots in that religion.
Extremists.
Right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, it is relevant. So apparently a bunch of them went around killing people who were impious just because some impious people became triads. So again, relevant to our society today. I feel like everybody can make those insinuations. Zeus then sort of took a long time. Like, he took his time coming out against, like, those faithfuls. Like, I think secretly he was okay with it. But pressure from everyone to be like, dude, they're killing innocent people. You should probably say something. So it sort of, he took his time.
Yeah.
Coming out. Again, sort of relevant in the news.
Yeah, just
sort
a
of,
bit.
Just a bit. Anyway. So I like, again, they had that little conversation. She had that thought in her mind, and Dimitri is like, okay, you can go to work now. Like, doesn't give her any instruction on what she can do for her first day or anything like that. So she's shown to her desk, and all of a sudden Adonis shows up. She hasn't seen him, talk to him since last night. So apparently he works there. He's a senior entertainment reporter. And he sort of like says, oh, I'll show you around the office. And he's like, what are you thinking of doing while you're here? And she's leaning towards investigative journalism since she likes to research and solve mysteries. Okay, sure. Anyway.
Like I said, maybe there's not many people in this world, and
maybe
you can do whatever you want.
I guess. Anyway, so he asks her, oh, do you have like a subject in mind? Or do you have something in mind that you're going to write about? And initially she says no. But in her mind, she thinks Hades.
Of course.
Of course. And it's just like, oh, come on. Like, I don't know. I just find this very, like, as opposed to some books where you read scenes and, like, you're just enjoying them and, like, you're okay with the fact that they're just there to, like, give you more info. I can see, like, I just feel like I can see it in this book a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell, oh, they're having this conversation because we need to know about the faithfuls versus the impious, and we need to
Yeah.
know that there's a group of triads there who's essentially a terrorist organization. Like,
Hmm.
I can see, like, oh, that's why we're getting this information at this point in time, and oh, that's why this is being told to us. It's just not a smooth flow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And like, there's just a few things that are so outside of the reality of this world that don't really make sense in any world, that kind of like take you out of the book for a second and you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Yeah, like that whole
So,
internship thing, like, it really, really bothers me.
and like, I think she says she's only working there, is it 2 days a week or something?
Yeah, something like that.
So like, you're going to be an investigative journalist and you're working 2 days a week.
Yeah,
I guess we'll
but
see.
yeah. I just can't. I just and like and I don't know, like the fact that she's writing, so if she's done school in 6 months, that must mean she's at the tail end. But yet she's writing a research paper. Like, on what?
Hmm.
What are you writing a research paper on for journalism?
Yeah.
I
I don't know.
just it's just not gelling for me. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, So once Persephone leaves work, she goes immediately to Nevernight, and she's super anxious about like what the mark on her wrist actually means. She wonders if it's like a contract. Did she sell her soul unwittingly to Hades? Um, so she basically just gets there and just knocks on the door for ages, and like nobody answers forever. And then the ogre from the night before answers, and she says that she needs to speak to Hades, but the ogre just like slams the door in her face, which is not surprising. But she knows about ogres, and she knows that they hate being called names. So she calls him a bastard to get him to open the door in anger, which like works, but like maybe not the smartest move. I don't know. They argue a bit, and he clearly thinks that she's just like a regular mortal that fucked up. But she ends up calling him big and ugly, and he loses it, and he picks her up by her neck, which I think is like not great. I don't think she thought through this situation.
No.
She doesn't think through anything, it doesn't seem like.
No, she's very impulsive.
Yes. Um, he asks her what type of nymph she is, which is interesting. Like, I don't know if now that he's touching her skin, he can tell that she isn't immortal or something.
Maybe.
Um, but he's like really choking her. So I kind of think that she lets her glamour fall, like not on purpose. I think it just happens because she's about to pass out.
Yeah.
Um, and as soon as he sees the horns, he knows he fucked up because, like, obviously all the gods and goddesses have horns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she tells the ogre who she is. She is Persephone, the goddess of spring, and that he will obey her. And she also kind of thinks that, like, since she doesn't have power, words are her only weapon, which I think is a smart way to go about life. I don't know if she necessarily does that, but she thinks it at this point. um, the door behind the ogre opens, and
Mm-hmm.
Hades appears. And
Mm.
yeah, and he looks a bit ruffled, but the ogre kneels to greet him, and Persephone is like breathless at his beauty.
Of course.
She greets Hades as an equal because he's a god, she's a goddess, so like she's technically a lady and he's a lord in this world. That's what
Mm-hmm.
they call them. Um, and the ogre kind of just says that like they're good to accept their punishment because they like, attacked a goddess, I guess.
Yeah.
Hades says that he's going to deal with the ogre later and invites Persephone in. Um, the place is apparently immaculate, like everywhere, which is just interesting because there was clearly a huge party there last night. It's a club. I
But I
I don't
mean,
know if
like,
you.
I also feel like that's why people work there. Like when the club closes, people clean it.
Yeah. But like if you've gone to clubs after like the next day, if you left your card there or something, they're never immaculate.
No, but they also don't have magic in our real world. So like
That's true.
I feel like magic probably covers a world of sins here.
That's true. Um, Hades kind of seems intrigued by the fact that Persephone is a goddess. He starts bringing her upstairs, and she's like finally being like, "Oh wait, where are we going? Like,
Yeah.
this might not be the best of ideas."
Yeah.
You're like, good to know that you have a bit of like self-preservation skills, but it's a bit late coming.
Yeah.
um, but he says that he wants to go talk in his office for privacy, and she says it seems pretty private here, and he just tells her like it isn't, which kind of makes me wonder if like that's going to come back somehow. Like, is she going to say something in the club and it's going to,
Oh,
anyway,
maybe.
I don't know.
I forget.
They go to his office, and she just notices that the decor is very flowery, which is like just another callback to the fact that she is not, even though she's the goddess of spring, she kills every flower she touches. He tells her that he was about to go to bed when she showed up, and he also tells her that he knew she was a goddess last night because he recognized Demeter's powers being used, and he knows that she is not Demeter. So he looked her up basically, and he said he had forgot that Demeter had a daughter, but after checking the text, realized that that's who like Persephone obviously must be.
Yeah.
And he does ask why Persephone isn't using her own magic, which like I hope we get more about, because I feel like we just like there's nothing about that. But
we will.
Okay, good. She just changes the subject and asks about the mark on her arm, but he just tells her it's the result of losing to him, and the rules are very clear. I don't know. I feel like it's not. I kind of agree with her a bit here. I'm like, it wasn't really a fair. She didn't go to him and be like, hey, I need money, or hey, I need this, and like set a bargain in place and then lose. Like, he was the one that was like, let me teach you. And then now he's like, well, you lost. Like, maybe that's a sign that you're a bad teacher. Like, I don't think it's her fault.
And I also feel like the game is a little bit rigged too, because like you're saying in a random 5-card draw with no, like, they don't have to discard any cards. It's just the hand that you're dealt. You're saying that he won all the rounds completely. Like,
yeah,
that just seems sketch to me.
Yeah,
so like,
I agree.
Like when you go to a like casino and you play the slot machines and everything, that like the house gets favor, right? Like the house always has a better percentage of winning than you do. So I feel like he must have the cards skewed in his favor in some way.
Yeah, he has to. But it's interesting too, because like obviously they played the game, she answered the questions, but now he knows that she was talking about Demeter when she said her mother. So like that I think is relevant. But I don't really think that Persephone really thinks of that. She's very, I think you said it earlier, she's very like punch first, ask questions later. Is that what you said? Like, yeah, I don't enjoy that about her up to now. And she's like very aggressive towards him. And like earlier when she was talking to her mother, in her head she was like, I never snap at my mom and like all this shit. And I'm like, everything I've seen about her so far in this book is she's like very aggressive towards all these people that she should not be aggressive towards. Like she almost just got choked out. And she also calls Hades an asshole. And I'm like, is that what you should be doing? Maybe you should try honey. Honey helps. Like, be sweet.
I know, and especially since she doesn't know him. Like, they've never met, and she's a jackass to him. Like, it's sort of just like, maybe you shouldn't. Like, maybe that's
Yeah.
not what you should be doing.
Just try to have a conversation with him and be like, oh, I didn't realize that I was like, you can't hold me to this because.
Yeah.
But she's like, fuse and just angry. She does argue to be let out of the bargain, but obviously it's no use. He gives her the terms and he says that she needs to create life in the underworld in 6 months. And if she fails or refuses, she'll become a permanent citizen of the underworld.
But, like, also notice how he doesn't say your soul. He says her. So, like,
Yes. Yeah.
I don't understand, like, I understand it's all about, like, self-preservation for her at this point, like, because she knows if her mother finds out, then she's dead meat. But, like,
Mhm.
also, he's Hades. So, like, I feel like if any, like, she's already admitted to wanting to get to know him and, like, being intrigued by him and finds him mysterious and, like, hot.
Mhm.
So, I don't understand why she's so angry. Like, I don't know. Apart from the fact that can't use her magic. Like, I see that being her, like, oh my god, shit, I can't make life in the underworld because I can't use
Mhm.
my powers for anything. So, like, I can see that pissing her off, but I don't understand why the deal in general is pissing her off.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to it that I'm just like, I wouldn't go about this way. So I don't really understand why she is.
Yeah.
But yeah, she says that, like, she also says she's surprised that he wants her to do this, but then she kind of realizes, oh, it's because I can't grow anything. So I just, I immediately thought, have a baby.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I didn't go to like grow some flowers in the underworld. I was like, get pregnant. It's
It's not a bad idea.
no.
I
What is
will
it
say,
to
like,
create life?
to avoid spoilers, like, that's, I don't know if you want me to tell you or not.
I don't. So, okay. But 6 months isn't long enough, I realize, to have a child. But you can create
100%.
cells that are.
You can.
Anyway, um, yeah. So she realizes that her greatest weakness, I guess, is her lack of power. So she knows that that is what.
Is it,
Um,
though?
yeah.
Is that it? Or
Yeah.
is
I don't
it
know
that
if that's.
she just seems angry all the time?
Yeah. So it's just so like, maybe this is the personality that she developed after she left her mother's because it's the opposite of what she was before or something.
Mm.
But I'm just shocked that somebody who like kept her in a greenhouse for 18 months, she never once or didn't often lose her mind like she does every 2 seconds in this book so far.
Yeah.
Just odd.
100%. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Um, anyway, so she's still talking to Hades and she tries to use her mother's anger to like get him to relent, but he is like, he's one of the main three. So he obviously isn't going to give a fuck about Demeter. Like he's above her really.
Yeah.
Um, and he knows that Demeter will be just as pissed off, if not more so, at Persephone. So she's unlikely to go to her mother and tell her about this problem.
Yeah.
He tells her that she can come tomorrow and he'll show her to the underworld. And she says that she'll come after her class because she's a student. And he seems kind of curious at that. And I guess maybe it's unlikely for gods. And I think that is the only reason she's a student, is so that Hades can be like intrigued by her.
Yeah, it's probably, yeah, you're not wrong.
She also asks him what he plans to do with the bouncer that had her in the chokehold, because she doesn't want him to remember her in her goddess form. And Hades says that he will erase his memory after he is punished. And she kind of says, like, he didn't know who she was, so maybe he shouldn't be punished. But he counters, like, he really shouldn't choke a woman out either. Like, he let his anger get to him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not, it is his fault, obviously. But Persephone was doing it on purpose so that she'd get in. Like, she has a role in this too.
I guess, but at the same time, like, you don't want your bouncer putting hands on anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure bouncers get a lot of grief, a lot. You know what I mean? I'm
Hmm.
sure they're called all kinds of names
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons. So I don't think that's a valid excuse either, just because she called him names.
No, but then he's being punished and then his memory's being erased anyway. It's like,
But I don't think it's getting erased like completely. I think it's just him knowing that she's a goddess is getting erased.
oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I don't really understand yet what he can do. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, Hades does tell her that she will owe him a favor for getting rid of the ogre's memory. And it's just like whatever he wants and sometime in the future. And
Jeez.
she just agrees because she doesn't really have a choice, I guess. Although, like, I don't think that the ogre would tell her mother or anything, so I don't know why she's so adamant.
I mean, I guess you never know though. Like anything could
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And I guess
Um,
ogres aren't known for their like intelligence either. So maybe she just
yeah,
doesn't want him to go like accidentally calling her my lady in front of other people. You know what I mean?
true. Yeah. Um, Hades then tells her that he'll have his driver take her home, and he kisses her forehead and says it's for her benefit, and now she'll be able to enter Nevernight whenever she wants. Um, she gets a good feel of his chest while he kisses her head, and she's
Hmm.
very turned on. A woman appears in the office to tell Hades that Thanatos is looking for him. I don't know if that becomes relevant, but I thought I may as well throw it in there.
Yeah, isn't Thanatos he is somebody.
Okay. Um, Persephone just thinks of how beautiful this nymph woman is, and she looks at Persephone with hatred, which is another one of those like, how can she tell? But I guess maybe she's glaring at her.
Yeah.
But it's probably because Persephone is still clutching like Hades' shirt and chest at this point. And she does try to move away, but he stops her.
Mm.
And Hades asks Minth to give them a minute. And Persephone is jealous of Minth already just because she looks appealing and sexy, I'll say. Like she's very seductive looking.
Mm.
Um, but you almost wonder if like Minth is also jealous because Persephone has her hands on Hades.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about her yet to know her motives or anything. Um, Hades asks her again why she's using her mother's magic. And she tells him the only way she's answering more questions is if they make another bargain, which won't happen. Which I think is smart because obviously she doesn't want to tell him.
No. Well, she doesn't want anyone to know, and why would you?
Exactly. Then she tells him he will regret this, and she touches the flower on his like jacket, and it immediately dies. And I'm
Ew.
like, obviously he knows
Yeah.
that she can't create life, but like, you're just showing him that this is going to be even harder for you than he originally probably thought by killing that flower. But
I actually think they tell us that like that is part of Hades' power is his perception. Like he can see what someone's weaknesses are just by looking at them.
yeah, he kind of gets into it in the next chapter, still this week. But yeah, I think he says he can look into their soul and
Mm.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Persephone goes down, and Hades' driver Antony is a Cyclops, and I think he's very sweet.
He is.
I really like him.
He reminds me of like I feel like he would be like a New York City cab driver, but like he's driving a limo. I don't
Yeah,
know why. That's just the vibe I get.
that's fair. Um, like when Persephone was leaving Hades, she just thought of how interesting he is, but that she should likely stay away. And it's like, that's completely impossible now. If for the next 6 months you're going to be trying to make life in the underworld, like it's a bit late for that.
Yeah.
She also feels a pulse in the tattoo, which is kind of interesting and makes me wonder if there's more to it. Like, I know we just read Akamath, but it kind of makes me wonder if there's like some type of bond through the tattoo, but we'll get to that at some point because I have no idea.
Yeah.
um, she thinks about like making life in the underworld during her drive, and she realizes that she doesn't know much about the underworld, like if there's life there at all or like what it even is, which is going to make it harder. um, Antony asks if she's going to be visiting again because Hades is often alone. And he also tells her that he thinks Hades needs a wife. And I'm like, does he know something that we don't know? Like, why would you just say this to a random
A
girl in
random
the back?
girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, she asks how long he's worked for Hades, and he says that the three freed his kind from Tartarus after Kronos put them there. So now, I guess the ones that were saved serve Zeus, Poseidon, Hades from time to time. Antony says that he's really happy to have Hades as his boss and thinks that he's better than the others. So that tells you something when employees actually like you.
And I mean, but I think in general, like, we can say going in, Zeus is a dick, right?
Yeah.
Because in mythology, Zeus is kind of a dick.
Yes.
Poseidon is, I think, sort of the most, like, sort of on the fence because we don't get a lot of, like, I don't know a ton about, like, you hear more about Hades and you hear more about Zeus than you hear about Poseidon.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think this is just sort of confirming what we sort of would have suspected already.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing with Poseidon is like, there's not enough that I know about Greek mythology about him to know which way he'll go in a book before you even start. But like with Zeus, you automatically know he's going to be an asshole.
Yeah.
So, um, when she gets home, Lexa is waiting to ask her whose vehicle she was dropped off in. And she tells her that it's Hades and part of her research for her job. And Lexa is like shook by this and ends up dropping and smashing a mug, which is just sad.
But like, I love, like, they are not even going to address that Lexa abandoned her last night, and then like they're not gonna talk about this at all. Like,
no,
this is
or that she left after and texted her and was like, "I'm gone," and like she didn't have a phone anyway until she left. Like, yeah, maybe they had a conversation we don't know about, but Lexa asks what Hades looks like because obviously nobody that hasn't met him has seen him because you can't take pictures of him.
Yeah.
And Persephone kind of starts to think about his divine form because obviously she hasn't seen it yet, but she anticipates that like he'll look even hotter with his horns and like just the glow of divinity.
Yeah.
And Lexa can tell that Persephone has a crush on Hades, but Persephone just says that like she can't condone his bargains. And Alexa suggests that she write about Hades and the bargains, which is obviously something that nobody does because of fear of the god, which is such a weird conversation because Persephone thinks it's like a great idea, especially since like he unwittingly gave her access to like Nevernight and everything for the bargain that she's in. But I'm like, she told Lexa that she was there for work. So what work was that if not exactly this? Like I just don't think it's a new idea. Like she already thought about it above when she was talking to Adonis. She was like, "Oh, I want to write about Hades." Like,
yeah, but I feel like maybe she didn't have a direction. Like she knew she wanted to write about Hades, but not quite what she would say about him. But now that Lexa is giving her the idea of, oh, you should write about his bargains with humans.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Like she could have taken any angle.
Yeah. Been like, he doesn't like to be seen by people.
Yeah. Or like could have written about anything. Like could have written about his club or like his business ideas or like literally anything. but
Yeah.
this is just the angle she's going to take.
Yeah. That makes sense. I just thought that like she was so surprised and so excited by it. I was like, why is this happening?
Well, I feel like she probably should have thought of it on her own instead of Lexa figuring it out for her.
Yes, I agree. Persephone does think of how Hades will regret meeting her, which is just like
sure
funny. Persephone's obviously worried about the bargain, but decides that she can make a garden like mortals do, and like she can wear gloves and kind of just like actually do the whole gardening thing so that the flowers won't die. It like that's her only plan at the moment about it, but she's pretty confident in it, which is like good for you.
But like also if she has a bank of like Demeter's magic, could she not use Demeter's magic in that way if she has a bank of it?
I don't know, maybe it doesn't like I
Like
just
she
wonder
can manipulate it enough to like fix her glamour. She should be
yeah,
able to manipulate it enough to throw a little bit on, like sprinkle a bit on a seed.
but I guess if she could do that she would have figured it out by now, because like
I guess
maybe it can't overpower her killing power of flowers. Like it makes me wonder, is that her power? Like, and is that why Hades is so interested in her, because there's like some part of death is in her power of some way.
Yeah.
Anyway, she kind of wonders if she can make Hades mad enough to release her from her contract, and I'm like, that seems like a really dumb idea. Like I don't think that's gonna work. And she's on campus now. I think it's the next day. She's going to her classes, and she mentions that there's a rumor that the gods' power is from their horns, but it's obviously isn't true because she doesn't have power. But it does make me want more information about the horns and like what the purpose is.
Yes.
She's just walking to her class, and her mother shows up to ask why she was at Nevernight the day before.
Yeah.
So that's sketch. She tells her it's for work and that she'll be going back. And her mother tells her to quit. And she tells her mother no. And she says it's the first time she's ever done that, which again seems hard for me to believe. She says she likes her life how it is and in this world, and tells her mother like that she doesn't want to not work at this job. She enjoys it. She likes her classes. And
how can she know that she enjoys the job? She's been there once.
I know. But, you know, I guess she's decided that this is what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
But like as she walks away, she's expecting a punishment from her mother at some point in the future, which is like
valid.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this, I don't know.
Like I say valid, like I don't mean valid like her mother is right.
Yes.
I mean she's right to be afraid because her mother is cray.
Yeah. She sees Lexa now, I guess, for lunch, I think it was, and she confides in her that her mom was tracking her and found out about Nevernight. And Lexa comes to her office with Persephone because basically I think she just wants to see Adonis. But like the only reason that she goes.
But again, it's her second day and she's already bringing friends to the office.
I know. I know. It's odd.
So weird. Like these people are so entitled.
Yeah. Well, and I think like Persephone is super entitled, and I get that she's also a goddess, so like I can understand maybe why she feels like it, but she's not outwardly portraying a goddess, so you'd think that she would just not act as entitled as she does. You think she'd be like trying to hide it. But anyway,
yeah, it seems like she wants people to treat her like a goddess without knowing she's a goddess.
Yeah. Anyway, Adonis basically tells Persephone that they should all go to the trials for the pentathlon that are happening this weekend together. And like, I kind of wonder what's going to happen between Lexa and Adonis. So we'll see.
Yes.
But Persephone says, before we talk about that, she wants help with something. She asks him if anyone has ever written about Hades, but he says no and kind of laughs it off because the consequences are like too great. Um, she's disappointed because like this newspaper is apparently supposed to be so heavy hitting and they like find all the dirt. So like, why are they afraid?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's more of her being naive and
Yeah.
a bit childish there.
Mm.
He does say that if she's serious, he'll send her any of the information that he has. Um, I just had a note here. Also, it's her second day.
Yeah.
Like, and she's deciding that she's going to take on something that nobody else is going to take on.
Yeah.
In her internship. Good. He does send her the info like immediately, and it's basically, I think, on 77 different bargains. And I'm like, why does he have so much information on
That's
this?
a lot. Like 77 bargains is significant.
And like he was obviously collecting it. Like
Yeah.
I just don't know what's happening. But she says that some are like friends and family of the people that made bargains. They're like voice clips from them. And I assume that some are people that won the bargains, but I don't know.
Well, you would think it would have to be. How else would they have the information?
Exactly. So I don't really know. She kind of explains that like most mortals go to Hades because they're desperate for something. It's usually either money or love, or like if they have a health issue, they go to him because he's the only one that can like fix those things easily, I'll say, even though it doesn't seem like it's very easy. Which is just kind of shows how different to how she ended up in this bargain. Like, I really do think that she was tricked, and I do feel a bit bad for her, even though she annoys me a tiny bit every now and then.
Yeah.
Adonis comes over to talk to her again, and he asks how it's going, and she tells him that she wants to interview Hades today. And it's her second day. And Adonis tells her, like, there are rules. Like, we need to go through his PR people, request an interview. But she just argues, like, they're just going to say no. And I can't write the article without asking him. And he agrees to go with her. I'm like, why?
I just feel like I feel like she's being a bit of a moron.
Yes, 100%. So they drive over there in Adonis's red Lexus, and I'm like, why does everyone have Lexuses?
Lexi?
I know. Luxopusses? Adonis goes to the door and tries it, and then he knocks, and then he's just like, oh no, we can't get in. And like, it's very obvious that he doesn't want to be there. It just makes me wonder, why is she dragging him along?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I don't like.
No sense.
This is literally her third day meeting him, and she's like, "Come on, let's go."
Right? It just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, Persephone goes over and she just opens the door because of the kiss on her forehead. She's able to, and then she is kind of all over the place because then she starts to think that like if she surprises Hades now, she might know if he's actually with Minth or not. And I'm like, this is very much not why you came here.
No.
You didn't come here.
She gets sidetracked quite a lot.
Yes. Minth is the one that shows up, though, to greet them. And she's like, what the hell are you guys doing here? And Adonis and Minth are kind of a bit flirty. But when she finds out that they're reporters and that they don't have an appointment, she's like, obviously, you can't see Hades. But Persephone tells her to tell Hades that she's there to speak with him, which just made me eye roll. And she demands an audience. And just like, why? Why are you doing this? I don't know. It kind of feels immature.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, Adonis is kind of like shocked that she's being so crazy. Obviously, he's immortal. He thinks she's immortal. So he's like, okay, I'm just going to take her away before everybody gets pissed at us and kicks us out. But Minth basically only goes to tell Hades about it because she's so sure that they'll be turned away. Um, and of course, Hades doesn't turn her away. Obviously, there's some attraction on that side as well. Um, they go up to his office, and he, even though he didn't turn them away, he's not pleased with the intrusion. But Persephone is like indignant here. She's like, he intruded on my life too. And it's like, yes, she's very much, I don't know.
She's behaving like a spoiled little brat.
Yes, that is exactly it. She's very one track minded about herself, or like, I don't even know. I can't get behind her.
No.
And it was this scene that made me stop reading the book in the first time I read it, because I was like, what the fuck is she doing? I can't understand her motive, so I can't really. And like, my biggest issue is, why is Adonis here? Like, she obviously doesn't want Adonis to know that she has a bargain going on or any of that. So like, why is she bringing him there? I just don't get it. Anyway, she explains to Haiti how they're both with New Athens News and they're looking for a comment. She lists a few people, and I guess that had made bargains with him, and he tells her that he remembers every soul. And she's getting heated. And they go back and forth a bit, and she asks about the lives he destroys with the bargains. Because he, like, his thing is, he doesn't tell people what it's going to be until after they've agreed. And like, after they've agreed, he'll figure out what, I guess, their vice is and choose that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he just tells her, like, it's a gamble. Like, everybody coming in knows it, and they should know that it's a gamble, and like, they agree to it. And that's just how it is. Hades says that he challenges what is destroying their life, and it's their choice to conquer or succumb, which is an interesting way to put it. But it almost makes it seem like, if they were never challenged on it, it probably would destroy their life anyway, even if they never went into this bargain. So it definitely gave me a bit more, I don't know the right word. It gave me a bit more, made me more interested in Hades as a person, and like what he's actually doing. Like, I don't think he's all bad. Whereas Persephone is very much like, he is a bad guy who's hurting people.
But yeah, and like, I will say that I feel like she has a unique perspective because she's also been living sort of as a mortal. So I feel like she has sort of a closer understanding of them as people, whereas the gods are sort of like, only see them as, like, not that they only see them as objects, but like, they see themselves as a part. So they don't really understand how mortals work.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. I just haven't really gotten into like how the other gods live at all.
Yeah.
Like, because I haven't been to that part. So yeah, I can see that completely though. This is kind of where she asks how he knows what the thing that is destroying people's lives is. And he tells her he sees to the soul and what's destroying it. And then he challenges that. And she kind of wonders like what he saw in her.
Makes sense. I would too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of curious myself.
I
want to see him and see what I wouldn't want to, I don't think I would make a bargain with him, but I would still be curious. Be like, can you just tell me?
Yeah.
She calls him the worst kind of god, and I'm like, it just seems a bit dumb. Like, Adonis is here still, he's immortal, she doesn't want him to know shit, and she's just like being so disrespectful to one of the like main three gods. And I'm like, I know she's used to having Demeter as her mother, but you can't, and she's afraid of her mother. She said the first time she said no to her mother was like earlier this day. And now she's telling Hades he's the worst kind of god. I'm like, he should realistically murder her.
Yeah.
For disrespecting him. but he doesn't. I don't know why.
I mean,
Um,
don't we?
yes. Um, he does tell her too that he's had success, and he kind of walks towards her to like get in her personal space, but Adonis gets between them, and Hades just like knocks him out magically, which I think is just kind of funny.
I love it.
I love it too. Like, this should have done this in the beginning. I don't even know
Yes.
why he's there.
Yes.
She's all like shocked that he knocked him out, but
Really?
right. But he says like she likely doesn't want Hades to know. I mean, doesn't want Adonis to know what Hades has to say next, and he says that he'll erase Adonis's memory without even requesting a favor from her, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. Well, she already owes him one favor.
Exactly. Hades is like really up in her space now, and he is not happy with how she used his favor, in quotes, I'll call it, and also dragging a mortal into like his office, basically. She asks Hades if he knows Adonis, which I also want to know, but he deflects and asks if she is planning to tell about her bargain with him in this article that she's apparently writing. And
which she probably should if she's being fair.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially since like she was tricked into it, I think it's like if you want sympathy and if you want the article to like not be just people being like, well, they shouldn't have done it in the first place. Like you should go in and give everything. A tell all, if you will. But yeah. And then he also mentions how she flushes in his presence and loses her breath. And like they're having a very hot moment here. But she's very clearly outmatched by him.
Yeah.
But then he also tells her that for the next 6 months, she is his. Ooh. So if she writes about him, there will be consequences. Which, like, obviously, like, this is not. Don't confront him day one of your 6-month agreement. Maybe collect information during the 6 months, and then at the end, be like, hey, so I'm writing this article about you.
Yeah, I know. She's very, like, I don't know. I just feel like she is super impulsive. She's like, this is a good idea. I'm going to do it. And then just goes and does it without any thought to consequences. And I feel like that's just part of her, like, the fact that she grew up the way she did. Like, she grew up completely isolated. So she probably, and probably had, like, servants and whatever. So, like, if she wanted something, all she probably had to do would be like, I want this.
Yeah,
and like,
that's very true.
She got it. So I just, she's an idiot.
Yes. But it's part of her personality. And I guess like unlikable characters, I do like them. But I just find it hard reading a book when I can't relate at all to what a person is doing.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I just had that issue with this chapter. But anyway, she does ask Hades, like, if he heeds no prayer and offers no mercy. But he counters that no one prays to the god of the dead until it's too late. I just think it was an interesting line of his.
I mean, not wrong.
No, exactly. Like, definitely completely right. I just wonder if that, like, back to his driver talking about him being lonely. I wonder if this is, like, something about how he feels inside. See, it's just a misunderstood baby.
He definitely is.
Anyway, so he wakes up Adonis and tells them he isn't taking any more questions and asks Minth to show them out. And as they're leaving, Hades tells Persephone that he's going to add her name to the list tonight, and then they leave. And she's kind of finally like scared of the consequences of this interaction and what will happen tonight.
What a shocker. Like, you're what? You're afraid that you just confronted one of the big three and now you're afraid of what's going to happen? What?
I know. I was like,
it's amazing.
She's also kind of shocked that Hades thinks he's helping people, which I think is a bit naive. Like, I feel like he probably is helping people in his own way. I honestly don't know because I haven't really read the book. But, like, the people that do win his bargain, if there's any, have probably overcome whatever is damaging their soul. So, like, you'd think that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's obviously something that will come up later. Adonis does obviously question that she's only met Hades once before now, and says it seems like there's some history there, obviously. And she tells Adonis that there isn't a history, even though, like, kind of in her head, she thinks that the 2 days feel like they did give her and him some history. And she also wonders if Hades was actually able to wipe Adonis's memory, because he clearly remembers something about this, and like about how, I won't say close, but like how friendly they were with each other, maybe Hades and Persephone. Yeah. Anyway, so it just made me wonder, does like he have some kind of powers or something that he's able to not get his mind wiped in some way?
Yeah.
Anyway, just interesting stuff.
I just find it really funny that they're like, oh, you guys have history. They've literally, this is the third time they've met.
Yes.
Like, they're acting really close when they don't know each other.
Yeah, it is very odd.
But
there's an attraction that they don't understand.
I think they understand. Well, I mean, I think they understand it. It's probably just well, on her side anyway, she doesn't want it.
Yeah. Want it.
She wants it, all right.
Exactly.
She wants to be filled.
Oh,
she's empty.
I hate that so much. I hate that. Oh, it makes me want to vomit. I can't. Never when I'm horny am I like, I want to be filled.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, no.
Anyway.
No.
So that wraps it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episode, or if you have any book suggestions, you can email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Coffee and Co Read.
Yeah, so next week we will be talking chapters 6 to 12 of A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our little chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find content. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next page.